Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is where you're in the world right now. Today we're going to be making a green beans recipe which is healthy, easy, and simple for people who are beginners. I'm going to start off by washing the potatoes. I'm going to scrape them with the abrasive side of the sponge because I want to remove the dirt, even though I'm going to proceed to peel them off anyways. I'm demonstrating how to use a vegetable peeler, which I'm not often using, so you can see my technique is really bad. But the most important thing for you guys to know is that you need to pull the peeler away from your hand. So it's not good if you just try to pull the peeler towards your hand to clean something. You need to hold the vegetable down and proceed to pull the peeler away from your hand. I'm typically not using vegetable peelers because they take off quite a lot of skin from the vegetable, and I'm not really a fan of that. And also they're not cut, so it's not easy to remove the skin all around the vegetable like you could do with a knife. And you can see me here do it the exact same thing using a knife. And you can see how much less of the skin you can take off. The important thing is that you really need to have really controlled and really precise movements when it comes to you approaching your thumb when you removing skin from vegetables with a knife. Because you could just use force more than it should be, more intense force, and you could cut yourself, and you don't want to have that be a traumatic experience. And I will proceed to cut off the base, the root of the onions, and then remove the tunic, which are both not edible. And then I'm gonna use my fingers to try and peel the outer part of the scales from the onion. You can see it's a pretty easy thing to do with your fingers. There are gonna be bits and pieces that are stuck on the onion, and you can use a knife to remove those. But if you're cooking it, boiling it, sauteing it, whatever you're doing with an onion, outside of just eating it in a salad, you could just leave some pieces in there. There's not a problem really. You can see the color difference between the outer part of the scale and the inner part. And then, those are organic carrots, so I'm not obviously going to peel them off with a peeler. They don't have pesticides on them. I'm gonna scrape the dirt and whatever remnants of the earth are on them on the outer surface with the abrasive part of the sponge. Don't judge me on that sponge. I know it seems dirty, but it's only used for vegetables. It's not to clean dishes. And I'm gonna use water to clean whatever soap I've put on the vegetables. This is all you guys need. You need 1 kilogram of green beans. Those are frozen, but you could use fresh ones. 4 medium potatoes, 4 carrots, and 3 onions. This is my recipe. I know Greek people use less onions, but I like the onion taste in food. 1 cup of tomato sauce and the seasonings of your liking. So let's begin. We're gonna cut off the potatoes first, which is simpler than you might think because potatoes is it's a very soft vegetable. You gotta cut it in half and then proceed to cut those bits in smaller pieces. I typically would recommend you to do medium to smaller pieces so that the boiling would take less time, I guess. And put all your ingredients in a bowl so that you don't have them lying in the kitchen board. And this is the bit where I went wrong. I am sorry. I forgot that I was filming at this point, and I started cutting off the carrots the way that I would typically do it, with a big knife, cutting all 4 carrots simultaneously. I am sorry. I think I cut most of the carrot before I remembered I was doing a video about it and not just cooking for myself. And I stopped and proceeded to cut the 1 carrot alone, which you guys should do if you're beginners. Don't try and do a lot of vegetables simultaneously. One is sufficient. You don't need to do 4 carrots simultaneously. Relax, take it one bit at a time. And you just need to do thin pieces. You could obviously use a vegetable peeler at this point, like I've used in previous videos. That would help you. As even as possible pieces. Don't be too stressed about it. And then I'm cutting half of the onion. And then I'm going to cut, as I'm showing you here, along the scale lines. So you can see the lines as I'm pointing them out with the knife. And you need to cut along those lines. So I'm cutting pieces along those lines. I'm using my index finger to grab the onion so that it doesn't slip away. And when you're done with this, you want to move the entire onion 90 degrees and proceed to cut again in slices. You're going to end up with cubes at this point. If you're intimidating by that, obviously you could grind the onions or any other vegetable, in that matter, in a food processor. It's the same thing. We're going to start off with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Greek people use about half a cup of olive oil, so maybe 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. So I'm not saying that this is the rule. And I kept this part of the audio on so that you guys can hear the sizzling sound that the onions should make when they hit the hot pan. It should be like an electric kettle, as I said, working. This means that the pan was already at the right temperature to begin with. It shouldn't be in a low temperature because the onions at this point will just soak the oil and you don't want that. And you just end up oiling. And you're going to start off shaking them a bit. You can see that it is already starting getting brown. You don't want to go away at this part of cooking. The rest of the recipe, don't give a crap. You could just go away in a different room. Doesn't matter. But at this part, when you're sauteing onions and vegetables, you want to be on top of them. Otherwise, they will get burned. I've already seasoned it because I want the water of the onion to be removed out of them and for it to be able to cook and caramelize. So I did in fact put salt, pepper and turmeric. Turmeric is not typical for this dish, but I think because of its health benefits, I like putting it in things. And it has a nice earthy taste. So I am going to move this bit with a spatula every minute or so because you want the onions to be cooked evenly. You don't want to have some burnt pieces and some that have not been cooked at all. I fast forward this bit because I wanted you to see how it should look like. You don't want it to be dark brown, you want it to be caramel brown. So you will see me again move everything around with the spatula because the upper part should also be cooked. And I actually kept this part in instead of cutting it off because I wanted you to see how the onion should look like by the end of the sauteing process. I'm using 1 tablespoon of honey, but you could just omit that part. You don't need to add sweeteners in it. I'm doing that because this caramelizes the onions and it gives a lot of sweeter taste, especially when you add the tomato sauce later on. I'm just letting it be for 30 seconds, 1 minute, and I will add the carrots in. It is done. By now it's done. You don't want to go further than that. It will get burned without you even realizing it. Trust me, it will get burned so quickly, you have no idea. And once we add the carrots and mix everything together, that is when we will let it be for another minute so that the onions give a little bit of a flavor into the dish. And then I'm gonna uncover it. It took about 1 minute for everything to be together. You see the water has already evaporated from the bottom of the pan. And this is when I'm going to add the vegetables. I'm gonna mix everything up and then add the rest of the vegetables. The green beans, and the potatoes. A pro tip would be that here I'm gonna add about a cup of water to help with the steaming of the vegetables. But if you're not using frozen green beans like I did, you might want 1.5 cup of water, because when the vegetables are frozen, they have kept up a lot of water and they will release it in the pan. But if they are fresh, they are not as watery as the frozen ones. So you need more water if you have fresh vegetables instead of frozen ones. And I'm gonna cover it up and I'm gonna let it be. This recipe is called Fasolakia in Greece. It is a very easy recipe. It is a dish that we do typically for lunch. And it's something that is very typical for the Mediterranean diet. All countries around the Mediterranean Sea have vegetable dishes. We have a kitchen that is oriented around vegetables and fruits. So this is a very, 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 very plant-based diet. And for us, the poultry and the meat is the exception. It's not the rule. I know a lot of people nowadays have added more meat and processed food in their diet. But if you want to follow the Mediterranean diet to the T, this is what you should do. You should add a lot of vegetables in your everyday diet and refrain from eating a lot of processed things and meat and things that you weren't supposed to find in the nature. At this point, I'm gonna add the tomato sauce. As I said, I am adding about a cup of tomato sauce. You can use canned tomato sauce that you bought. I made this myself. I grinded the tomatoes and I made it myself, but you could just use something that you find in the supermarket. That's not the important thing here. I'm gonna mix it up and I'm gonna let everything steam. As I have said, Greeks typically put about 100 grams of olive oil in this dish, and I'm putting 1 tablespoon and maybe add a little bit of olive oil fresh when the food is already done. So this is the main variation of my version compared to the original one. I know that a lot of people might feel that the way that this dish looks discourages them from eating it and trying it out because of the onion bits that look a little bit unappetizing. But trust me, this is a very tasty recipe for people who try to be more healthy and who try to add more vegetables in their diet. This is the main course, it's not the side dish. We typically pair it with feta, which is like a protein boost and a fat boost, and a bread piece, like a thin slice of bread. This is 40 minutes in the cooking process, and you can see everything is already steamed appropriately. It's at the right consistency. The vegetables are still whole, but they're really soft, and there is some water left in the bottom of the pan. It should have some water in there. That's what I'm pointing out here with my finger. About 1 to 2 fingers high is the perfect amount, I think. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite vegetarian dishes and a great twist to the plain steamed beans. Please like and subscribe if you liked it or you tried it out. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.